Karyn Bryant for MMA Heat, and we are here for a UFC on FX analysis wrap-up video. Got my friend Steven Marrocco here from MMA Junkie, and now we also got a special guest straight from the UFC's light heavyweight division. It is Kyle Kingsbury. Kyle, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, we want to just get things started, and I want to talk about Pat Barry and Christian Morecraft in a heavyweight victory. And it's funny because right before Pat won, I literally had said, man, I wish he would win more fights. You know, I like the guy. Everybody seems to like the guy. I wish he would win more fights. And boom, there he did. So Kyle, I'll start with you. What did you make of his victory?
Well, it was a great, exciting victory. You know, I was very happy for him as well. I thought anytime I make a prediction for a guy to win, I want to see him get the victory just for the fact that then I can gloat and say, yeah, I called it. But, early on, I was watching the fight, and Bader had also predicted Barry was going to win. And Morecraft kept getting those takedowns. And I was thinking, like, doesn't this guy go and train with Lesnar, all these camps, and just work pure wrestling? Like, shouldn't his takedown offense have improved? I'm sure there's a ton of fans that say the same thing about me. But I'm thinking that the whole first round, and you see the fight not really going his way, and then as he gets back to his feet and he's able to relax, and God, the guy's got power everywhere, power in his legs, power in his hands. It was a pretty cool victory. Mm-hmm. But I will say my only complaint about that fight was it looked like Herb Dean had front row seats at the end of it, because he could have called it a little bit earlier. Yeah. I mean, took some serious damage when he was already out cold, you know.
Right. That's true. Well, you know, people talk about that a lot, actually, with the reffing, and sometimes it's too late, too little, too late, not on time. But what did you make of Pat's performance? How do you think he's looking?
Well, it was a must-win performance, and I think if there was anyone who was going to give him a final test, like basically a loser leaves town kind of situation, a situation in which if he lost, he'd be definitely out of the UFC, regardless of how likable he is. You know, 3 losses is 3 losses. Christian Morecraft was the guy to do it, because basically he's going to take him down, he's going to try and grind him out. Right. And it's Pat's job to stay on his feet and head kick him into oblivion. So I think he did a great job, and I think the work, Kyle, you were talking about the work with Lesnar, and you know, he started later in life. You know, he started wrestling later in his life, and he started grappling later. And this is all, you know, still pretty new. This stuff takes years and years to perfect, and so I think it showed some great improvement when he got out of mount, when he got out of that armbar. That armbar looked pretty bad, and so I think it's a good win, and it definitely, you know, he's a fan favorite, so it's good to have him around. Mm-hmm.
And actually, Kyle, this is a question for you, because there was a moment there where Pat, I was like, oh, please don't get subbed, you know, please don't get subbed. What do you do, you know, in your head? I mean, how do you stay calm? What do you think? Not that you can project what Pat was thinking, but seriously, like, how do you just relax when you know you're being that close to getting tapped out?
Well, really, it just comes down to focusing on what you need to do to get out of there. You know, if you get put in mount, if you're panicking or thinking, oh shit, man, I just got put in mount, then that's the wrong mindset. You're gonna get control, or the guy's gonna be able to advance position or finish you. Mm-hmm. If your mind is thinking, what do I need to do to be successful in this position? How do I get out of this? Those kind of things, then that you'll just stay right on track with the progression of the move and how do you escape and all that kind of stuff. As you saw to walk around the body and get out of the submission. Mm-hmm. But really, that's the difference. You have a guy like Pat who can maintain the control and focus on what he needs to do to get out. He's able to do that. Other guys, they don't think that way, or they get down on themselves, and that can be a difference maker for sure. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's move on to another fight. The second one, this is the Papazian Easton fight, and Steven, I know that you were bothered initially, even just by the antics in the octagon before the fight even started.
It did feel like a Street Fighter match, for sure. With the like as I was saying before, I expected Ryu to throw a flame, or maybe Saget to get in there and do a spinning kick. Because I don't know, but hey, do what you got to do is my feeling.
Right, and Kyle, and your take on the walkouts and on the entries.
Well, I never really understood the whole Kevin Randleman beat your chest, jump up and down and scream, and then you get in there and you have that giant adrenaline dump. Yeah. That's the same reason I come out to 80s pop music, because it's just you're going to get in there, you're going to fight. You don't need anything else to hype you up or to push you over the top, because when the door's closed, the fight's going to happen, So really, I don't see the wasting energy or anything like that as being a good thing. And all the John and staring each other down from across the room was just comical, because seriously, you're going to fight, big deal, Right. If you don't there's no sense. You're not going to intimidate one another. You're both professionals. Right. So looking at, making sure you don't miss eye contact with your opponent doesn't really do much, other than make a guy laugh. So.
Well, let's talk about the fact that as bantamweights, they kept up a very good pace. But there was something about this fight, I kind of felt like it was 3 rounds of the same thing. You?
Yeah, it was definitely a dynamic fight for certain parts of it, especially in the last round. Those guys were standing there and just trading toe to toe. But for the most part, I think Easton's real brilliance is in pushing you up against the cage and smothering you, taking you down, and really punishing you from the top. And he's a fire plug, man. He's got that physique. He's got that those huge lats, and he basically just powers you and bullies you all over the cage. He's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how he moves up and how he faces some of the more experienced bantamweights in the division. But it was a good victory for him. I do agree with you though that all that clinching it can get static at times.
Yeah. Kyle, what do you think of him as a prospect and for his future?
I definitely like him as a prospect. He's a very exciting fighter. I really expected more from him in the fight in terms of being able to finish his opponent, but I also give a lot of credit to Papazian for coming out there and showing a lot of grit and just hitting him with a lot of different odd angle stuff. He put hands on him the whole fight, and he made it close. So I give credit to his opponent rather than take something away from Easton.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on to Josh Neer and Dwayne Bang Ludwig. This was interesting. There was an interesting moment with the mouth guard, and I was trying to watch again. Steven and I were looking at this, trying to figure out if he said I didn't spit it out, but when exactly it came out. Kyle, do you have a feeling on what happened with the mouth guard and when it happened?
No, I don't. I really didn't see what was going on with that.
Right. But what did you make of the fight, Steven? It was exciting, definitely. I mean, it was that was a scrap. That was a scrap.
It was definitely, and actually, it was kind of what I predicted in the sense that I think that Dwayne is a little bit better of a technical striker than Neer. I think Neer is a really tough guy and he can take a lot of shots. But I thought that he had the option to take it down. He's been working on his ground game for a lot longer, and I think that if he had the option to take it down and he got tagged, he was going to take it down. So the mouth guard thing, this is actually the second time that this has happened in his fights, and I think that's why because he had mouth guard issues in the last fight, I believe, and so people are kind of looking at it as a kind of a conspiracy.
Right. And do you think when he pointed it out, he was at a point where he was getting? Not that he was losing it, but it seemed like there was at any point he could have said, "My mouth guard is out."
Looking for an out.
Yeah.
What do you think? Hey.
Whoa.
That's
Who just Tito.
Tito just took a fall.
Tito's jumping in from the Raptors.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole mouthpiece issue thing is really something where it's got to be the referee. It can't just be like, oh, hey, that's kind of like the, Matt Hughes calling timeout, kind of thing. Like, I never understood that. It should not be in the fighter's hands. You shouldn't be able to influence a referee. And obviously, you can influence the ref, but that's just that's a tough thing. What do? You can't. Docking a point or something like that. That's pretty serious,
right?
Because then you're also judging the guy on if he was doing it on purpose and whatnot. And yeah, it's tough call for sure.
Well, certainly in the end, it didn't really matter because he was able to sink the choke in and finish the fight. I mean, that was and Dwayne was out. Limp out. So I don't know. Do you think that this means another, good step up for Neer, obviously, but who would you like to match him up with next? What do you think?
I'm not sure. He's a guy. He's got 2 wins now. Mm-hmm. He's fought a lot of top competition, and he's had some good wins. But he's also been susceptible to guys that are that are better than him on the ground and are basically going to take him down and grind him out. So I think pairing him with a striker is something that's going to favor him. But I'm not sure. I keep thinking with him that he's going to just eventually run into someone who's better than him on the ground, and it's going to be the same kind of story where he gets outpointed. So I'm not sure as to who's the next best challenge, but obviously I think it was an impressive win, so it's going to guarantee he's going to stay around for a little while.
Nice. All right. Well, let's get on to the main event: Melvin Guillard versus Jim Miller. Out the gate, Melvin was looking pretty good, looking pretty strong, landing some nice knees, but then once again fell subject to the choke. Kyle, what'd you make of that fight?
Well, it was just it was funny because before they had the fight going, they start showing highlights of each other's fights, and
right,
and they show Joe Daddy Stevenson, choking him out. And I really thought in the back of my head, like, man, I hope that doesn't happen, because I like Melvin. I like the fact, I like his story. I like that he's working hard and he's joined a great camp and everything. And I like to see his improvement. He's an exciting guy to watch for sure, especially, with all his power and athleticism. Always like watching him fight. And I thought he did a good job of coming out maybe a little bit more controlled than he normally does, pacing himself and really setting up his striking. But in the end there, it didn't really matter. He still has some pretty big discrepancies on the ground. And I can speak from experience. I definitely have some holes in the ground game myself. So, those are things you got to work on. You got to throw the gi on or do some more no gi or whatever, but start working your way up the belt system. Definitely.
Well, and this is interesting, because for a while there, Melvin was really building some momentum. Then he had that loss. Now he's got 2 in a row. What do you think he can do to regain that momentum?
I think it's
besides win.
Besides win. Well, it's also the matchups that he got. He got some good matchups. Guys that were a little bit not as experienced as him, and not as like when he fought Shane. He's fought like a guy like Rick. I can't remember his name. He's had some good matchups in his career. The thing that strikes me with Melvin is that he's so talented. He's so talented in this one area that I think he believes that he can't be hurt, and he's going to. He's not going to be in trouble. And I kind of wanted to ask you about this, Kyle, because you've obviously been in a few rooms throughout your career in this, and I'm sure you've seen guys that are very, very talented in one area, and I guess my question is that talent is it a hindrance or a help when it comes to shoring up these other parts of the game that guys need these days?
It's a hindrance for sure. If your mentality is I'm so good at this, or that you start to define yourself as one type of fighter, then it is a problem, because you don't focus in those other areas. If I'm going to sit here and if Brandon Vera said, I'm a great striker and that's who I am, and he never paid attention to the ground, he wouldn't be the fighter that he is. The fact that he doesn't look at himself that way, and he appreciates the ground game, that builds him up in all areas. But other guys, you see that are very good at one thing, they stick to that, and they don't put a whole lot of time in those other areas, because they do so well with that. They want to sharpen their strength, and they don't focus on the holes in their game, and it can be a real problem long-term for them. Especially because now you get to the point where you're a one-trick pony. Everybody knows what you're going to try to do, and the thing is, you live and die then with the wrestling. If you get taken down and you don't have the ground game, then you're fish out of water.
And to me, I saw the flying knee. The flying knee over and over again. The first couple times he landed it clean. It was a great way of keeping Jim off balance. But then he continued to do it, and of course, it got him taken down. Right. So the question is, why does he keep doing these things, these high-risk attacks that put him in bad situations? And I think that's something that when you say what he's going to have to do to gain his momentum, he's going to have to take a real hard look at that tendency in his game. And
well, luckily, I think he is because he's done it before, kind of straightened out his path. I think he's at a maturity level where I think he probably will do the right thing there and really investigate his problems and his tendencies and work on it, because he seems to me to be aggressively pursuing being better. Do you know what I mean? Like, I definitely get that feeling from him that he really does want it badly, and so I have a feeling that he will take the 2 losses and regroup. And I mean, Kyle, I don't know what that's like to come off a loss, and the first few times you guys get back into the gym, I don't know what it was like for you after the Stephan Bonner fight. I mean, do you beat yourself up more? Or, I mean, how do you even process the losses when you get back? How hard is it to get your groove on?
Well, I'll tell you right now, coming up, fighting Stephan in front of my home crowd and losing the way that I did, I felt helpless, like a child out there, just getting smothered by him, and even he went to transition to north-south position a couple of times, and you get teabagged in front of 20,000 people, your home crowd. Yeah, that's no fun. It's certainly a tough pill to swallow. But when you come off a loss like that, it makes you hungrier, and not that I had lost that hunger. By no means did I feel like, oh man, I'm set. I'm a UFC fighter now. Blah blah blah. I don't need to work. That was never the case. But you have like a certain level. The flame burns brighter inside now, no question. And it's renewed my love for jiu-jitsu. I'm in the gi now 3-4 days a week, and working on, still doing a ton of no-gi as well, but just working on pure jiu-jitsu and things like that. And and trying to become a better overall fighter. And I know Melvin, being in the good camp that he is at Greg Jackson's, is going to have all the right guys there to help him improve and get those areas up. And, I think going back to, the philosophy of doing these high-risk moves, that's okay to throw these high-risk moves if you're that talented on the ground, if you don't have to worry about being taken down or your takedown defense once your butt hits the mat, you spring back up like Kane did against Lesnar. If you've got those kind of skills, then that's okay to go after those moves. But until you get up to that level, you definitely need to worry about, is this a move that could potentially sway the fight in the other guy's direction.
Mm-hmm. And Steven, to put a button on this, Jim Miller at the end said, I'm the most dangerous lightweight in the world. He really believes that. So obviously he's not next for a title fight, but where do you think he should go? Who would you like to see him with? Well,
we were talking about this before. I think that Nate Diaz might be the guy, because they're both winning right now. They both have a lot of heat on them. Miller's obviously beaten a lot of top lightweights already. Yeah. He went on a 7-fight win streak before he met up with Ben Henderson. So he's got a good case at least to be, second or maybe even first in line. But I think he's probably going to have one more step with somebody, possibly Nate Diaz, as Ben and Frankie are fighting in February. So that puts them maybe early summer. So
I like that, Joe Silva.
Yeah.
I like that fight. Kyle, you like that fight, Nate Diaz and Jim Miller?
I love that fight. Love that fight. And you got two guys that are super, super high level on the ground if it hits the mat. And obviously both of them love to trade a little bit. So and I'm so impressed with Nate in his last fight. I tweeted that he looked like Nick Diaz. Looked so much like his brother. Yeah. And really, that just shows how far he's come in his game. Because Nick has been elite level for a very long time, and Nate's kind of always been younger brother stepping up his game and coming up. And now I really feel like Nate's achieved that. He showed it just incredible hands. His technique has come up so far. He's definitely fighting like Nick right now.
Yeah. No, that last fight in Ace was tremendous, and I think if he can get over that inconsistency hump, of the winning, the losing, I don't know if it is a mental thing or what, or it's just maybe he's just growing into being a better fighter, more mature fighter now. But I like that fight. I want to see that happen. In other news, Kyle, we wanted to talk to you about your teammate up at AKA King Mo. Recently tested positive for a banned substance. I've been tossing back some substance myself.
It was a long night last night.
Yeah, it was. What can you tell us about Mo, how he's feeling, or what you know about the situation?
Well, Mo's really upset, obviously. He shot me a text while I was out here in Arizona training with Bader and the guys at Power MMA. So I had no idea. I wasn't, going online or checking the computer as often as I do. And he said, give me a call. So I gave him a ring, and we talked for a minute, and he told me what had happened. And it was really just in disbelief. Like, he had no clue what it could have been. I was like, tell me what supplements you're taking. There's a possibility. Because some of these things, some of the supplements out there, they're not, they don't run them through NCAA testing and things like that. A lot of the new ones now, Cytosport as a company is one that makes sure they get certified that there's no banned substances in there. He's positive that he's never taken anything like that, and like I was telling you guys earlier, he's a smaller guy. Everyone looks at him and sees him ripped on camera and all that, but he's been the same size his whole career, and he's not a big 205er. He's definitely, he would have been, I imagine, a lot bigger than that if he was taking something that's banned, because he was like 208 3 weeks before his fight. He only had a 2-pound weight cut, so that's not typical from what I would understand of a guy that's on the sauce. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either. But we're just waiting to hear back about his B sample and hoping that comes back negative.
Nice. All right. Steven, did you have a question for Kyle?
No, I think you pretty much addressed it. I mean, what do you think it is? I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of stuff going on with supplementation. Got athletes claiming it's a supplement. I was taking this, I was taking that. I didn't know I was doing anything, and they. Does it just really speak more to the need for more regulation of these things? Is it? Do you buy it when you hear it's a supplement kind of excuse that we've heard so many times in the past?
Well, I'll say right now. I mean, I do buy it because there's a ton of supplements out there that put that kind of crap in there. And first and foremost, if steroids are illegal, you should not be able to go into a store and buy a pro hormone, which will turn into a steroid in your body. There is zero reason for that. And that's exactly what's happening. Guys take that stuff, and it makes you pop positive, and all of a sudden, it's legal to buy, but it's not legal to take. And then other companies start putting in, in their protein, because they want guys to get good results from their protein, and wonder why. Oh man, this whey protein is the best protein I've ever had. So companies have an interest in doing things like that as well. And it's just one of those things where the government needs to step in. They're so busy regulating all this, baseball and things like that. They want to step in when there's a big name involved. They should be stepping in to the masses. All these kids in high school that are growing up, and they're saying, I want to be big, I want to be a good athlete, I want to play football in the NFL and all that. And they can walk right into, a Max Muscle or any of these stores and buy that kind of stuff. It's just stupid. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. And that really comes down to, regulation at the top. They need to regulate that stuff so it's not even in the stores.
Nice. I do want to ask you, you did mention that you were training with Ryan Bader. I was down with Rampage the other day, and I tweeted something like, holy crap, because I know Ryan is tough. I know Ryan is a very, very tough guy, but my goodness, Rampage has got an uppercut on him. That guy hits very, very hard. So how's Ryan looking in advance of the fight in Japan?
Well, Ryan looks great. He's actually, they got a new boxing coach, who's Ray Stafford, who's just an incredible guy, Irish guy, very, very talented. He was the guy that Ryan was working with before the Jason Brills fight, and you saw a big improvement there in his stand-up, getting the knockout. Was also a guy who worked with Aaron Simpson before Aaron's last fight, where he had just very good footwork and great stand-up, a lot of smooth boxing, And it's going to take that. Obviously, Ryan doesn't want to stand toe-to-toe with Rampage the whole fight. That's not his strength there, but I think he's got a lot. He's got a lot of potential. He's really improving, and people like to look at guys and think, oh, this is what you see is what you get. He's a certain fighter, and he's always going to be that way. And the truth is, everyone's improving, even the older guys. But really, if you're a younger guy coming in the sport, you're making big jumps between each fight. You're really improving in new areas, and I'm totally seeing that now with Ryan in his stand-up game and how he flows into his takedowns rather than just being the typical wrestler that throws the power right hand and shoots a double leg from across the cage. He's a lot better now in all of his transitions, and he's working some different takedowns to try to get Rampage to the mat, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be an awesome fight.
I bet. Well, and I think his speed is going to be a factor in that as well.
Ryan Bader's?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I'm here. He's obviously got. I would tend. You see more of him than we do, right? You see more shades of the guy, and you're far more qualified than us to predict what's going to happen. Especially when it comes to how he's going to get the job done. The job is the same, in taking him down. But he's generally he's got a lot less miles on his body. Yeah. Which I think is huge coming into the fight, and I also think he's got more to prove. I think Rampage has had a long career, and I think that he really wanted to fight on the Japan card. It was sentimental to him, but I think Rampage is on the tail end of his career, and a fight like this is a huge opportunity for Ryan to step up and take a huge leap after some pretty big setbacks. So. Important fight.
Absolutely. And Kyle, what's next for you? I know you've been training, obviously. Have you got anything on the books? Do we know when we'll see you next in the Octagon?
Unfortunately, not yet. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed to fight in April. I know that they just filled up the Sweden card, but I've heard that there's a couple open slots there left in the April 21st card in Atlanta. Nice. So really, I just want to get back in there. I want to erase that loss. It's my first loss in over 3 years, and I can't. I want to get the taste out of my mouth. I don't like it at all. And to the fans, you're only as good as your last fight. So I definitely want to get back in there and get a W.
Nice.
As possible.
Well, and I do want to ask you, because obviously we had that now famous bathtub interview, but do you think that was too much weight to cut for you at the end there? Do you think that played a factor in it?
Well, no. I really think what had happened was. I got gassed in the fight, but it wasn't because of the weight cut. It was because of the technique. Stefan had a very, very powerful top game in the sense where he didn't take a whole lot of risks. He put a lot of pressure on me, and he used his weight. I haven't gone against a guy that was my size before, and certainly, him being a black belt in jiu-jitsu and me being a blue belt at the time, all the nuances of the ground game were completely exposed there. I mean, my fight, I knew I would lose if it went to the mat. And the fight was lost in the wrestling, no question. So we've been working a lot more on takedown defense, obviously. But just being able to do something once I'm put there on my back, rather than completely getting controlled like that, has been the biggest thing I've been working on. And you know, it takes a lot out of you when you're trying to move around and get out from underneath somebody like that, who's a bigger guy, who's a stronger guy, and who has far more technique than you. It definitely takes a toll on you, and that's what happened in the fight there.
Nice. Well, I tell you what, Kyle, you keep doing these with us, and you'll beat him in the TV game.
Yeah, hopefully one day I can just you know, even being side by side with him in front of a camera wouldn't be a bad deal.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Well, Kyle, I want to thank you for joining me and Steven today. Thanks for taking the time out, and we look forward to seeing you back in the octagon. And Steven, as always, my pleasure having you over.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for watching, you guys. See you next time.